Hello, everyone. I'm Billy.
And I'm Kamraun. Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors and the creators of the Malazan Brotherhood.
Today, we'll be discussing Book 3, Chapter 15 of Memories of Ice, a novel in the Malazan Books of the Fallen. This is part 1 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it is most definitely not a replacement to reading the books. Both Billy and I know this to be the best fantasy story ever written and want to share our love of the series with you.
We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion, and there will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book, and still, dude, great job, man. Still good job.
A quick warning, today's episode contains adult topics not suitable for children.
And our show is listener-supported. If you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate that. And you can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we'd really like to hear from you, and we really mean that. Send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com. All right, Chapter 15. Whiskey Jack rose in the saddle as his horse leapt over the spiny ridge of outcroppings cresting the hill. Hooves thumped as the creature resumed its gallop, crossing the mesa's flat top, then slowing as Whiskey Jack tautened the reins and settled back in the saddle. At a diminishing canter, he approached the summit's far side, then drew up at its edge. A rumpled, boulder-strewn slope led down into a broad, dry riverbed. At its base, 2 Second Army scouts sat on their horses, backs to Whiskey Jack. Before them, a dozen Revi were moving on foot through what seemed to be a field of bones. Huge bones. Clicking his mount into motion, Whiskey Jack slowly worked it down onto the ancient slide. His eyes held on the scatter of bones. Massive iron blades glinted there, as well as crumpled, oddly shaped armor and helmets. He saw long, reptilian jaws, rows of jagged teeth. Clinging to some of the shattered skeletons, the remnants of gray skin. Whiskey Jack rode up to the nearest scout. The man saluted and said, "Sir, the Revi are jabbering away. Can't quite follow what they're talking about. Looks to have been about 10 of the demons. Whatever tore into them was nasty. Might be the Revi have gleaned more, since they're crawling around among the corpses." Nodding, Whiskey Jack dismounted. He said, "Keep an eye out." The killing field exuded an air of dread, old yet new, and, even more alarming, it held the peculiar tension that immediately followed a battle. Whiskey Jack thought, thick silence, swirling as if not yet settled by the sounds of violence, as if somehow still trembling, still shivering. He approached the Revi and the sprawl of bones. The tribal scouts were indeed jabbering. One scout said, "Dead wolves." Another said, "Twice tracks. The touch is heavy yet light, wider than my hand, big." One said, "Big dead wolves." Another said, "No blood, agreed? Barrow stench." One said, "Blackstone dust, sharp." Another said, "Glittering beneath forearms, the skin." One said, "Black glass fragments." Another said, "Obsidian, far south." One said, "Southwest, or far north, beyond Lateron Plateau." Another said, "No, I see no red or brown. Lateron obsidian has wood-colored veins. This is morn." One said, "If of this world." Another said, "The demons are here, are they not? Of this world, in this world." One said, "Barrow stench." Another said, "Yet in the air, ice stench, tundra wind, the smell of frozen peat." One said, "The wake of the wolves, the killers." Whiskey Jack growled, "Revi scouts, attend to me, please." Heads lifted, faces turned, silence. I like the way they're talking to each other here. It's a collaborative way of discussing their findings.
It's that. It's also, or for me, if I was with that kind of group, it would help spur, at least it appears to help spur your thinking, on to the thinking like, well, maybe here, okay, wait a minute, I don't see this. So I like that. It's very detective, very monosyllabic detective, but
it's very fast-paced conversation.
Yeah.
People are jumping in every 2 seconds there. Whiskey Jack said, "I will hear your report now. Which of you commands this troop?" Looks were exchanged. Then one shrugged and said, "I can speak this Daru you use, better than the others. So, for this that you ask, me." Whiskey Jack said, "Very well, proceed." The young Revi swept back the braided strands of his grease-laden hair, then waved expansively at the bones around them and said, "Undead demons, armored, with swords instead of hands, coming from the southeast, more east than south." He made an exaggerated frown and continued, "Damaged, pursued, hunted, fleeing, driven like veteran, this way and that, loping, silent followers, four-legged and patient." Whiskey Jack cut in, "Big undead wolves." I wonder if he believes what he's hearing or is skeptical. He is aware of Talan Imas, so this type of creature is within that realm of possibility.
From what I've gathered, it seems like no one has heard of the Talan A, except for the Talan Imas. They're that much, that much of a progenitor of the original wolves that no one even knows of these things for the most part. So I'm not sure if it's a skepticism or just kind of absorbing the info and seeing that they may be right.
Yeah. The scout said, "Twice as big as the native wolves of this plain, yes." Then his expression cleared as if with revelation. He said, "They are like the ghost runners of our legends. When the eldest shouldermen or women dream their farthest dreams, the wolves are seen. Never close, always running. All ghostly except the one who leads, who seems as flesh and has eyes of life. To see them is great fortune, glad tiding, for there is joy in their running." Whiskey Jack said, "Only they're no longer running just in the dreams of your witches and warlocks. And this run was far deadlier." The scout said, "Hunting. I said these wolves are like those in the dreams. I did not say they were those in the dreams." His expression went blank, his eyes the eyes of a cold killer. He said, "Hunting, driving their quarry, down to this, their trap. Then they destroyed them. A battle of undead. The demons are from barrows far to the south. The wolves are from the dust in the north winds of winter." Whiskey Jack said, "Thank you." The Reeve manner of narrative, the dramatic performance, had well conveyed the events this valley had witnessed. More riders were approaching from the main column, and he turned to watch them. 3 riders, Corlat, Silver Fox, and Krupp, the latter bobbing and weaving on his mule as it raced with stiff, short-legged urgency in the wake of the 2 horse-riding women. His cries of alarm echoed in the narrow valley. Krupp and this mule... it certainly lends some appreciated comic relief whenever it shows up.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm eager to learn more about this mule.
The scout leader said, "Yes." Whiskey Jack swung round, eyes narrowing on the Reeve scout leader, who, along with all his kin, was now studying the 3 riders. He said, "Excuse me?" The Reeve shrugged, expressionless, and said nothing. The scree of boulders had forced the newcomers to slow, except for Krupp, who was thrown forward, then back on his saddle as the mule pitched headlong down the slope. Somehow the beast kept its footing, plummeting past a startled Corlat and a laughing Silver Fox, then, reaching the flat, slowing its wild charge and trotting up to where Whiskey Jack stood, its head lifted proudly, ears up and forward-facing. Man, it had to show those horses what's up, didn't it?
Oh, man. I wonder if we're going to fall the same, we've fallen in love with several horses in the series. I wonder if we're going to fall for these mules.
Yeah, this certainly seems like it has its own personality.
Yes.
Like it's acting of its own accord.
Yes. Like you said, it's just got to show these horses. I mean, it's like it's a real point of pride. It's like, It's like, I'm gonna get past y'all. Excuse me. I like that, dude.
Krupp, on the other hand, remained hugging the animal's neck, eyes squeezed shut, face crimson and streaming sweat. He moaned, "Terror! Battle of wills! Krupp has met his match in this brainless, delusional beast! Aye, he is defeated! Oh, spare me!" The mule halted. Whiskey Jack said, "You can climb off now." Krupp opened his eyes, looked around, then slowly sat straight. He shakily withdrew a handkerchief and said, "Naturally, having given the creature its head, Krupp now reacquaints the facility of his own." Pausing a moment to pat his brow and daub his face, he then wormed off the saddle and settled to the ground with a loud sigh. He said, "Ah, here comes Krupp's lazy dust-eaters. Delighted you could make it, dear ladies. A fine afternoon for a trot, yes?" Silver Fox had stopped laughing, her veiled eyes now on the scattered bones. Whiskey Jack thought, "Hood take me, that fur cloak becomes her indeed." Mentally shaking himself, Whiskey Jack glanced up to meet Corlat's steady, faintly ironic gaze. He thought, "But oh, she pales beside this Tis Andy. Damn it, old man, think not of the nights past. Do not embrace this wonder so tightly you crush the life from it." Whiskey Jack said, "The scouts have come upon a scene of battle." Corlat eyed the bones and nodded. She said, "Kachain Chimal, Kael hunters, fortunately undead rather than enlivened flesh. Likely not as fast as they would have been. Still, to have been torn apart in such fashion." Silver Fox said, "Talan A. They are why I have come." Whiskey Jack studied her. He asked, "What do you mean?" She shrugged and said, "To see for myself, Commander. We are all drawing close. You to your besieged city, and I to the destiny to which I was born. Convergence, the plague of this world. Even so." She swung down from the saddle and strode among the bones, then said, "There are gifts, dearest of such gifts. The Talan A." She paused, the wind caressing the fox fur on her shoulders, then whispered the name once more. Talan A. Krupp said. Krupp shivers when she so names them. Ah, gods bless this grim beauty in its barren land tableau, from which starry dreams so dimmed with time are as rainbow rivers in the sky. He paused, blinked at the others, and said, Sweet sleep, in which hidden poetry resides, the flow of the disconnected, so smooth as to seem entwined. Yes? Whiskey Jack growled, I'm not the man to appreciate your abstractions, Krupp, alas. Get on with it, Krupp. Someone had to say it. Who would this type of conversation appeal to?
You know, I wouldn't think a whole lot to anybody, but in a weird way, it's almost like Krupp is really almost touched. This is like almost a hidden glimpse of him, I feel, in a strange way. I feel like he's like really not just running his mouth like he normally does. It's just kind of like he's just really noticing something.
The poet in him has come out?
Yeah, exactly, sir. Just it has waited for this moment. One of the few times his eloquence is, he's actually eloquent and not just mouthy.
There was something in there that Corlat said that they should be thankful these were undead Kachane Shamal, because if they had been alive, they'd be faster. That surprised me.
Yeah. That's really not cool. Because these guys seem fast enough as it is. Because they talked about what they had, how many when they first were introduced to the Kachane Shamal, when they attack, is it when they first attack Botulane and Corball Brooches with Gruntle and them? Is that when we kind of first really get our first look? And they said, you have like, 120 heartbeats? These fellas are, they're about a quarter of a mile away, but you got about 120 heartbeats. They're going to be here. And it was just like, whoa. So these guys would be faster? That's not cool. I don't love this.
Even beyond their speed at running, I interpret it also as their ability to use their blades and snap at things with their mouths.
Yeah, everything would be quicker because of being alive, I think. Your reflexes being a lot sharper.
Well, so where I get confused with that, and maybe it's not a equivalency, but Tool seems incredibly fast.
That's the thing here, too, is the undead of this world don't necessarily seem to be like what I'm used to with undead. Which they're either, the rabid zombies, or they're just kind of undead who slowly fall apart as we go. And don't seem a lot of that with their undead. Now, they age. Are the Talani Mas and the Talani A really the only undead? I can't think of any other undead at the moment. The dragon in this universe. There's a lot of...
Raced.
Yeah, they're intelligent and stuff like that, so they may still have a lot more of their functions intact, and they may not suffer that much. Maybe they only lose 1 or 2 points. Lose 1 dexterity for their being undead. Or -2 until you get better.
Yeah. The only other undead I can think of are, what was the rat diver's name? Grillin?
Grillin? Yeah.
Grillin had those servants.
Oh.
That were complaining about how they died.
The sad guys, yeah.
The sad
I'm sorry. And rightfully so. I'm sorry. They apparently died hideous deaths at Grillin's hands. So it's a sad thing to remember. But yeah, that's kind of how I think about them, yeah.
And they didn't seem fast or having any sense of urgency.
No. They were quite loquacious, though. They like to talk about how they died horribly.
Yeah. What they were allowed to talk about, at least.
Well, that's true. God, that would get old, wouldn't it? You didn't die as bad as I did, man. No way. It's like, please. You weren't there. You didn't see it. It's like...
Krupp said, Of course, blunt soldier, as you say. But wait, does Krupp see in your eyes a certain charge? The air veritably crackles with imminence. Do you deny your sensitivity to that, Malazan? No, say nothing. The truth resides in your hard gaze and your gauntleted hand where it edges closer to the grip of your sword. Whiskey Jack could not deny the hairs rising on the back of his neck. He looked around, saw a similar alertness among the Revi, and in the pair of Malazan scouts who were scanning the hill lines on all sides. Corlat whispered, What comes? Krupp murmured, The gift, with a beatific smile as he rested his eyes upon Silver Fox. Whiskey Jack followed Krupp's gaze. To see the woman, so much like Tattersail, standing with her back to them, arms raised high. Dust began swirling, rising in eddies on all sides. The Talan A took form in the basin, on the slopes and the crests of the surrounding hills. Whiskey Jack thought, in their thousands. Gray dust into gray matted fur, black shoulders, throats the hue of rain clouds, thick tails silver and black-tipped, while others were brown, the color of rotted, powdered wood, faded to tan at throat and belly. Wolves, tall, gaunt, their eyes shadowed pits. Huge, long heads were turned, one and all, to Silver Fox. What an eerie scene that is, with thousands of wolves, undead, staring at her.
Yeah, that would be a really, really something to see on the screen. Another thing I just kind of popped into my mind about Krupp real quick. Do you think he takes a certain pride in Silver Fox? Because in a way, basically, she's kind of almost born in his subconscious, not subconscious, in his warren, I guess, in his head, in his dreamland.
Yeah, I think he does. I think he has a desire to protect her, and I think he says a little bit later here that he has faith in her in one of their little exchanges in a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah, very cool.
Silver Fox glanced over his shoulder, heavy-lidded eyes fixing on Whiskey Jack. She smiled and said, "My escort." Whiskey Jack, struck silent, stared at her. He thought, so like Tattersail, yet not. "Escort," she says, "but I see more, and her look tells me she is aware, so very aware now. Escort and bodyguard. Silver Fox may no longer require us, and now that her need for our protection has passed, she is free to do whatever she pleases." A cold wind seemed to rattle through Whiskey Jack's mind. He thought, gods, what if Calor was right all along? What if we've missed our chance? With a soft grunt, he shook off the unworthy thoughts. His thoughts continued. No, we have shown our faith in her, when it mattered most, when she was at her weakest. Tattersail would not forget that. So like, yet not. Night Chill, dismembered by betrayal. Is it Tayshran her remnant soul hates? Or the Malazan Empire and every son and daughter of its blood? Or the one she had been called upon to battle, Animander Rake, and by extension Caladan Brood? The Reeve, the Barghast, does she seek vengeance against them? And that's a lot to consider there. We haven't heard a lot about Night Chill in the books thus far, but what we have lends me to believe that she would hold a grudge like no other.
Yeah.
And Whiskey Jack is right to question who she would blame for her death.
I agree, yeah, because from what little we've heard of Night Chill, she does not seem the forgiven type. I'm really curious. It's a really good question, and there's a lot to consider.
I don't even know that she knows that it's Tayshran's fault that she was killed.
That's true. How would she? I mean, unless you're granted some knowledge in death, which we haven't that's not been hinted at in this universe, that all of a sudden you gain some knowledge when you die. So,
unless they've discussed how that demon came to fruition amongst the group while Silver Fox was there, I don't know that she could know where it came from, unless she saw Tayshran summon it herself before she died.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't remember if they talked about it in front of Silver Fox, though.
I don't think they have. I don't believe they have.
Krupp cleared his throat and said, "And a lovely escort they are, my dear lass. Alarming to your enemies, reassuring to your loyal friends. We are charmed, for we can see that you are as well so very deeply charmed by these silent, motionless Talan A. Such well-behaved pups. Krupp is impressed beyond words, beyond gestures, beyond suitable response entire." Corlat murmured, if only that were the case. She faced Whiskey Jack, her expression closed and professional. She said, "Commander, I will take my leave now to report to our leaders." Silver Fox interrupted. "Corlat, forgive me for not asking earlier, but when did you last look upon my mother?" Corlat said, "This morning. She can no longer walk, and this has been her condition for almost a week now. She weakens by the day, Silver Fox. Perhaps if you were to come and see her." Silver Fox said, "There is no need for that. Who attends her at this moment?" That's pretty cold-blooded. Not even willing to go see her.
Yeah, I agree.
Corlat said, "Counselor Call and the Daru man Murillo." Krupp said, "Krupp's most loyal friends. Krupp assures you all, she is safe enough." Silver Fox's face held a tight expression. She said, "Circumstances are about to grow tense." Whiskey Jack thought, "And what has it been till now, woman? Calor haunts your shadow like a vulture. I'm surprised he let you get away just now, unless he's lurking about on the other side of the nearest hill." Corlat inquired, "Do you ask something of me, Silver Fox?" Silver Fox visibly gathered herself, then said, "Aye, some of your kin to guard my mother." Corlat frowned and said, "It would seem, with your new guardians in such number, that you have some to spare." Silver Fox said, "She would not let them approach her, I'm afraid. She has nightmares. I am sorry, but I must ensure my Talan A are kept out of her sight and senses. She may look frail and seem powerless, but there is that within her that is capable of driving the Talan A away. Will you do as I ask?" Corlat said, "Of course, Silver Fox." Silver Fox nodded, attention shifting once more back to Whiskey Jack as Corlat wheeled her mount and rode back up the slope. She studied him in silence for a moment, then looked to Krupp and asked, "Well, Daru, are you satisfied thus far?" Krupp said, "I am, dearest one." Not in his usual tone, but spoken low, measured. Whiskey Jack thought, satisfied? With what? Silver Fox asked, "Will she hold on, do you think?" Krupp shrugged, then said, "We shall see, yes?" Krupp has faith. Silver Fox asked. Enough for both of us? Krupp smiled. He said, naturally. Silver Fox sighed, then said, very well. I lean heavily on you in this, you know. Krupp said, Krupp's legs are as pillars of stone. Your touch is so light as to pass unnoticed by worthy self. My dear, the sound of additional riders urges upon you a decision. What will you permit to be seen by those who now approach? Silver Fox said, nothing untoward. She raised her arms again. The Talan A returned to the dust from which they had arisen. With a soft grunt, Whiskey Jack strode back to his horse. There were too many mysteries roiling through the company of the two armies, secrets that seemed to hold promises of explosive revelation. He thought, probably violent ones at that. He felt uneasy and thought, I wish Quick Ben was here. Hood knows. I wish I knew what was happening with him and Perrin and the bridge burners. Did they succeed? Or are they all now dead, their skulls surmounting poles around the Bargas camps? A substantial part of the column's vanguard reached the hill's crest, where they halted in a ragged line. Whiskey Jack swung himself into the saddle and made his way towards the group. Calor, riding a gaunt gray horse, had deliberately drawn rein apart from the others. His faded gray cloak was tight about his broad armored shoulders. Shadows deepened the lines of his ancient weathered face. Long strands of gray hair drifted to one side in the wind. A fitting image. The weathered warrior sits alone. Always alone.
That, he's just kind of a dick.
I would like to have a portrait of this picture of him.
Yeah, me too. There's something about I think what I like about Calor is just, I don't know what he just knows so much. He's been around a long time. And he's also human, apparently. So it's like, okay, you're kind of in our camp.
He's like Lex Luthor.
Yeah, exactly. You're one of us because you're one of the same species as we are, but that's about it, dude.
I'm trying to quantify why he interests me so much this time. Part of it is because I do really enjoy a good villain. I think he's obviously a sociopath.
Sure.
Maybe even a psychopath. He killed his entire continent to spite the Elder Gods when they came to punish him. But I guess what appeals to me about his character is he really doesn't care what anybody thinks about him.
Nope.
I mean, for all his faults, that's pretty admirable.
He's confident. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
I appreciate his confidence. I appreciate that confidence. I wish I had that kind of confidence sometimes.
Just the fact that he's good at something.
He is. Well, I have confidence. I just don't have stone cold psychopath killer confidence. You know?
Yeah, I don't think you should aspire to that.
No. Well, it's funny that we joke about psychopaths. I think we've talked about this before, and I think it's a common knowledge. Sometimes psychopaths have some admirable traits, and there's a lot of our best businessmen, surgeons, doctors, bankers, whatever, have psychopathic traits to them. It's usually the most successful ones have some traits. So a dash of psychopathy can be a good thing, I guess, if it's just the right amount, the right dash.
I guess it depends on how much control they have over other people.
Yeah.
If it's something where it's not going to negatively impact a lot of other people, then if it can drive them to do better, okay. Once the other people are negatively impacted by that, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Whiskey Jack's gaze held on Calor a moment longer, gauging, then shifted to the others lining the ridge. Brood and Dujek were side by side. On the warlord's right sat Herlokel. On the Malazan's left, the standard-bearer, Artanthos. The Trigal Trade Guild's merchant mage, Herodis, was also present, and of course, Corlat.
I'm sorry, whenever I hear Artanthos, dude, all I can ever think about, he sounds like one of the Three Musketeers, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yes.
I'm always thinking, it's like, wait, isn't that one of the Musketeers? It's like...
Is that really? It might be.
No. There's D'Artagnan. Oh, I'm going to have to pull it up now, of course. Athos, Porthos, Aramis, and D'Artagnan.
Okay. So it's like a combination of two of those almost.
Yes,
You know.
Yes, very much. The Athos and the Porthos almost. And D'Artagnan, it's Athos, Porthos, and D'Artagnan. That's all of them rolled into one. It's just a fantastic. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we've stumbled upon you. We know who you are, Mr. Erikson. We saw you.
I wonder if that was where that came from. They merged those three names together. The three the Three Musketeers?
I'm going to question this for questions for the great Mr.
Because D'Artagnan was kind of the fourth one, right? The younger one.
He was the younger one that was so awesome, dude. Is that one thing? Isn't D'Artagnan the man?
D'Artagnan was... I don't even remember if I read that book or not. I'm thinking back to the movie.
I've never read it.
Okay.
I only know movie versions of any of it. I know a bunch of What's funny is I know a bunch of stuff. I don't know if you know this about what is that? Good gracious, I'm embarrassed. I can't think of his name at the moment. He was famous. Good golly, what's his name? It's the Three Musketeers, the Man in the Iron Mask, the Count of Monte Cristo. He wrote all those. He was a Moor. He was very famous. He himself was a musketeer and had done a lot of this stuff. He had a very exciting life himself. Good golly. Alexander Dumas.
Right, right.
I don't know why that just struck me just like that. It's like, oh, that's too funny. I wonder if that's the case.
None were speaking as Whiskey Jack's horse reached the crest. Then Dujek nodded and growled. Corlatz described what the scouts found. Anything else to add? Whiskey Jack glanced at Corlat, but her expression was closed. He shook his head and said, "No, High-Fist. Corlat and her kin seem to know more about these Kachane Shamal than the rest of us. What lies below are a jumble of shattered bones, some weapons and armor. I could not have identified them myself. The Revi scouts believed they were undead." Calor muttered, "Fortunate for us all. I am not so ignorant of these creatures as the rest of you, barring Corlat. Further, I am feeling unusually loquacious. Thus, remnants of the Kachane Shamal civilization can be found on virtually every continent on this world. Indeed, in the place of my old empire, Jakaruku, their strange mechanisms filled pits and holes in the earth. Whenever my people had to cut below the surface, they discovered such constructs. More barrows were found. Scholars conducted careful examinations of their contents. Do you wish to hear an account of their conclusions, or am I boring you?" Brood drawled, "Go on." Calor went on, "Very well. Perhaps there is more wisdom present here than I had previously credited. The beasts appeared to be reptilian, capable of breeding their own kind to specific talents." I'm sorry, dude. He's just...
I love him, dude. I'm laughing too. It's like, perhaps there's more wisdom here present than I had previously credited. It's just that little backhanded comment. I'm like, dude.
So condescending.
Everything is condescending from this guy. It's like, I'm just deigning to speak with you. Good gracious. I'm breathing your air. Isn't that enough?
Those the Tist-Andi called Kael hunters, for example, were born as warriors. Undead versions are in the valley below, yes? They had no hands, but swords in their stead, somehow melded to the very bones of their forearms. The Kachane Shamal were matriarchal, matrilineal. As a population of bees have their queen, so too these beasts. She is the breeder, the mother of every child. And within this matron resided the sorcerer's capacity of her entire family. Power to beggar the gods of today. Power to keep the elder gods from coming to this world. And were it not for the self-destruction of the Kachane Shamal, they would rule unchallenged to this day. Corlat said, "Self-destruction. An interesting detail. Can you explain?" Calor said, "Of course. Among the records found, once the language was deciphered, and that effort alone is worthy of lengthy monologue. But seeing how you all shift about in your saddles like impatient children, I'll spare the telling." He said he was feeling unusually loquacious. I seem to recall multiple instances of him just prattling on and on and on.
Oh, yes. But none of them have been so informative. I don't think he's been this courteous with his information, I guess is a good way of putting it. And I think we touched base on this before, and I think it's probably in some other questions from Mr. Erikson. Are the Kachane Shamal, are these Mr. Erikson's horrific take on Alien?
I don't know.
If it is, it's horrifying, dude. I'm always horrified by these guys just because, first off, they're just reptilian and they're just kind of so foreign to us and we know nothing about them. And yeah, they trouble me for some reason. I don't know why.
I think a lot of the other elder races are humanoid in nature to some degree. So these being intelligent and reptilian really throws us for a loop because they are alien.
It does. I think my favorite image of them, I've shared it with you, is an old Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. It's Calvin's, one of his fantasies. It's a bunch of T-Rexes and B-52 bombers. And it's like, that's kind of like the Kachane Shamal, someone said on Reddit. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is. And I think I sent that to you. It's like, that is kind of scary. It's like machines. They have these weird machines. We don't know what they do. We kept finding them. They're buried everywhere on every continent on this planet. We don't know what they do. These strange machines. They had purpose. I mean, good golly.
Yeah. Hopefully we find out more in the future. Calor continued. Among the records found then, it was learned that the matrons, each commanding the equivalent of a modern city, had gathered to meld their disparate ambitions. What they sought, beyond the vast power they already possessed, is not entirely clear. Then again, what need there be for reasons when ambition rules? Suffice to say, an ancient breed was resurrected, returned from extinction by the matrons, a more primitive version of the Kachin Shamal themselves. For lack of a better name, my scholars at the time called them short tails. Oh, there are different types of Kachin lizard peoples?
This does not bode well. And especially, we need to flash back to what was said about the Kachin Shamal just a few minutes ago, where it was mentioned that as the Imas were to the Jagut, so were the Jagut to the Kachin Shamal. That's like orders of magnitude. We think of the Jagut as such, and they're like these world breakers, continent shatterers with their ice. And these guys apparently make these guys look like a bunch of pikers.
Hold that thought, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
And
I'll come back with it. Okay.
Yeah. Whiskey Jack, his eyes on Corlat, was the only one to see her stiffen at that. Behind him, he could hear Silver Fox and Krupp making their way back up the slope. Calor went on in his dry monotone. For the singular reason that they physically deviated from the other Kachin Shamal in having short, stubby tails rather than the normal, long, tapered ones. This made them not as swift, more upright, suited to whatever world a civilization they had originally belonged to. Alas, these new children were not as tractable as the matrons were conditioned to expect among their brood. More explicitly, the short-tails would not surrender or merge their magical talents with their mothers. The result was a civil war, and the sorceries unleashed were apocalyptic. To gauge something of the desperation among the matrons, one need only travel south on this continent to a place called Morn. Corlat nodded and murmured, "The rent." Calor's smile was wintry. He said, "She sought to harness the power of a gate itself, but not simply a common Warren's gate. Oh no. She elected to open the portal that led to the realm of chaos. Such hubris to think she could control, could assert order upon such a thing." He paused as if reconsidering his own words, then laughed. He said, "Oh, a bitter lesson or two in that tale, don't you think?" So the rent is a portal to the realm of chaos, and those poor Jagut children were sent into that in the prologue.
Yeah, and just some more knowledge that's dropped there. The fact that chaos is apparently very powerful, I guess because it's just unrestricted, but he mentioned this gate, not just your typical Warren gate, but one of chaos. The fact that they were going to try and harness this, I'm assuming they were going to try and harness this to wipe out the short tails because they weren't following orders. It's a bold move, kind of the A-bomb move.
Yeah, messing with chaos never turns into a positive scenario.
Yeah, and apparently this world still suffers from that action because that rent is still kind of there. Kind of scanned over a wee bit, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And what is this, hundreds of thousands of years? I'm assuming this is going to be before the intro to the book, which is when Calor was deposed at the chaining, or at the first calling down of the crippled god. Does this predate that stuff? It has to, because he had built a society here and said we found this stuff in the soil.
Yeah, this is all old stuff.
Yeah. Hundreds of thousands.
The rent was already there when Kilava was on her way to...
Oh, that's right.
Go to the summoning to turn into Selene Mass. Or she wasn't on her way,
gracious.
But the summons was out for that.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So 300,000 years ago, the rent was already there.
Yeah, I'm assuming it had been there for quite some time.
Probably.
Okay.
Caladan Brood grunted and said, "Let's bring this back to the present, shall we? In the valley below, undead Kel hunters. The question to address is, what are they doing here?" Silver Fox said, "They are being used." Everyone's eyes fixed on Silver Fox, who stood before her horse, reins in hand. Dujek growled, "I like not the sound of that." Silver Fox said, "Used by the Panyan Seer." Kelor snapped, "Impossible! Only a Kachin Shamal matron could command a Kael hunter, even when undead." Corlat said, "Then it would appear that we have more than one enemy." Dujek leaned on his saddle and spat. He said, "The Panyan Seer has an ally? There's not been even so much as a hint." Silver Fox cut in, "Nonetheless, proof lies before us, in the valley below." So back to our ongoing discussions regarding who knows about the crippled god's involvement in the Panyan Daemon. Mm-hmm. It's conversations like this that lead me to believe that they don't know who or what is behind the happenings in the Panyan Daemon.
Yeah, it seems like the people that know aren't with this group, and they haven't been read in. I feel like some people know about it, and we're trying to get back, I guess, to let everyone know what's going on. I guess that's where we're heading to in this story. It's funny, I guess what we just found out. There's, Panyan Daemon's got somebody backing them, got a hidden backer. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing this is what we're going to come back with, hopefully, later on in this chapter or next chapter. Some of these threads will play out.
A couple paragraphs here, I think. There's another comment about that.
Oh, okay.
Calor said, "A matron cannot breed more of her kind without the seed of living males. Therefore, with each kill hunter destroyed, there is one less for us to deal with." Brood turned at that, eyes thinning to slits. He said, "Easily swallowed, this revelation." Calor shrugged. Brood went on, "There is also before us another truth, regarding the destruction of the Kel hunters. Someone is doing it for us, it seems." Silence. Then slowly, attention focused on Silver Fox. She smiled and said, "I did say some time ago that you would all need help." Calor snarled, "Talan I mass! So tell us, bitch, why would they concern themselves with Kachain Shamal? Are not the Jagut their avowed enemies? Why task your undead followers with a new one? Why have you and the Talan I mass joined this war, woman?" Silver Fox said, "We have joined nothing." Her eyes heavy-lidded, standing as Tattersail would stand, hands clasped and resting on the folds of her belly, her body solid yet curvaceous beneath her deer-hide tunic. Whiskey Jack thought, I know that look. Sleight of hand. Careful now. Brood's expression was uncertain. He slowly said, "Do you deny, then, that your Talanai mass were responsible for destroying these Kael hunters?" Silver Fox said, "Have none of you ever wondered why the Talanai mass warred with the Jagut?" Dujek said, "Perhaps an explanation will assist us in understanding." Silver Fox gave a sharp nod. She said, "When the first Imass emerged, they were forced to live in the shadow of the Jagut, tolerated, ignored, but only in small, manageable numbers, pushed to the poorest of lands. Then tyrants arose among the Jagut, who found pleasure in enslaving them, enforcing upon them a nightmarish existence that successive generations were born into and so knew of no other life, knew nothing of freedom itself. The lesson was hard, not easily swallowed. For the truth was this: there were intelligent beings in the world who exploited the virtues of others, their compassion, their love, their faith in kin, exploited and mocked. How many Imass tribes discovered that their gods were in fact Jagut tyrants, hidden behind friendly masks? Tyrants who manipulated them with the weapon of faith. The rebellion was inevitable, and it was devastating for the Imass. Weaker, uncertain even of what it was they sought, or what freedom would show them should they find it. But we would not relent. We could not." Calor sneered. He said, "There were never more than but a handful of tyrants among the Jagut women." Silver Fox said, "A handful was too many, and we found allies among the Jagut, those for whom the activities of the tyrants was reprehensible, but we now carried scars born of mistrust, of betrayal. We could trust only in our own kind. In the name of our generations to come, all Jagut would have to die. None could be left, to produce more children, to permit among those children the rise of new tyrants." And that's a sad way to justify genocide. At the beginning of her explanation, I almost felt bad for thinking that they had gone too far with the things they had done to the Jagut. Then they jump right to the "none can be allowed to live" portion
Right.
of the flow, and it's like, okay, that's quite the bleak worldview, assuming that you have to destroy everything because this may happen in the future.
Yeah, you would have to destroy every ascendant in all actuality, but I do understand being rubbed a bit raw by the Jagut for, the untold millions and possibly billions of deaths at the hands of a relatively small group of Jagut. So I do get it, but it's like, y'all done a bunch of killing too. It's been several hundred millennia. Let's just, can't we just move along? Can't we just get along?
The thing that sticks out to me is Calor is human.
Mm-hmm.
He subjugated a lot of people, destroyed an entire continent.
Yeah.
You gonna kill all your own people now too because a human can do that?
Yeah, well, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
There has to be something very specific. I mean, I think that's a pretty specific. I mean, pretending to be your deities, that's pretty bad, dude. It's lulling whole generations into possibly thinking that you're there to help them, and you're really just feeding off of them and just using them and being cruel to them. They may need to go.
Yeah, that specific one, but then some of the other Jagut went to help against that because it was wrong.
They did. They did. But even then, it's...
Then they go and betray them because you can't have any.
Just can't have any.
Because you might get another tyrant in the future.
That's true. They're very thorough. It's a very thorough bunch.
It doesn't sit well with me.
I get it. I get it. Genocide shouldn't sit very well, but I think the kind of interesting fact is I think the interesting point here is that, but there's apparently already been a genocide that was kind of hidden from us with the Kachain Shamal and the Shorttails. Some kind of big thing has happened. Hundreds of...
I view that differently because that's like a mutually assured destruction because they just couldn't stand each other.
That's true. I can see that. Nope. Short tails are better. Long tails are better. So they're the original Crimson Bloods.
And to be fair, the Kachain Shamal, it seemed like they wanted to subjugate the Short Tails. And nobody's going to sign up for that.
Well, if I understand it correctly, the society is run in just such a manner. It's the female that assigns whatever role they're going to be. The matron assigns the role that they have, and they follow that role. And it sounds to me like they're just kind of a slave race, a very hive-minded bunch. And when they decided to resurrect this short tail group to maybe, I think that they were doing that, I'm assuming, for help and wanting to do what they're wanting to do. And it's like, these guys don't want to be our slaves like the rest of you guys want to be our slaves. That just didn't sit well.
Corlat asked, and how does this relate to the Kachain Shamal? Silver Fox said, before the Jagut ruled this world, the Kachain Shamal ruled. The first Jagut were to the Kachain Shamal as the first Imas were to the Jagut. She paused, her heavy gaze moving among them all. This last section here helps set a framework for the past history of this world.
Yeah.
I know that we've had some conversations where we asked who came first in the timeline, and it appears that it was Kachain Shamal, Jagut, Talani Imas, / Thelloman / Toblakai, because they were around at the same time, then humans.
Yeah. I'm like you with this next bit. We do need to work on that.
Yeah, so I've been working on a timeline, a Malazan timeline, and so I would like some more information on where the Elder Gods fit into this, and then other Elder races like the Tist, and then the working those into this timeline as well.
Yeah. In your mind, does it go with these elders? Who all are the elders beside the Tist? Is it the Jagut? Are they considered elder as well?
I had considered them elder.
Because I thought they listed those old warrens were listed as elder, and that included the Talan, the Tellan.
I'm talking about like what came first in terms of, I'm not sure about the warrens, what was here and what wasn't. Right. I'm specifically talking about when the peoples themselves
the races.
Came. Yeah. And I do seem to remember that there's a possibility that the Tist races coexisted with the Kachain Shamal. I just don't know if they came before or after them.
Okay. That's my question, I guess, is who came, because everything that my brain just wants to scream for some reason that the Tist Andy in particular are the first from what we've been told about how the Tist worked. I can't remember if all this stuff was spelled out. It was spelled out, wasn't it? What I have written here, like the Andy and the Leos.
Among the Tist specifically, yes, it's been spelled out that it was the Tist Andy, they're related to darkness, true darkness, and then Father Light came because Mother Dark was lonely. Then the Tis Leosin were born, and then the interplay between light and dark created shadow, so the Tistadur came.
Yes. So at this time, would the Kachain Shamal have arisen, or maybe been, you seem to think that they may have been going on at about the same time, probably?
I don't know, because it's possible that the Tist races are so old that they predated them. This is all like prehistory, right? So unless it's talked about in the Forge of Darkness, that series,
right?
The Tist trilogy, I think the third book's, he's going to come out with that soon.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Well, I think it's one of the next books he's working on.
Okay.
Once that comes out, I'll read them, and then I'll have some more information.
Right.
Silver Fox went on. In each species is born the seeds of domination. Our wars with the Jagut destroyed us as a living people, as a vibrant, evolving culture. That was the price we paid to ensure the freedom you now possess, our eternal sacrifice. She fell silent once more, then continued in a harder tone. So now I ask you, all of you, who have taken upon yourselves the task of waging war against a tyrannical, all-devouring empire, of possibly sacrificing your own lives to the benefit of peoples who know nothing of you, of lands you have never and will never set foot upon, I ask you, what is there about us, about the Talani Imas, that still escapes your understanding? Destroy the Panyan Daman, it must be done. For me, for my Talani Imas, awaits the task of destroying the threat hiding behind the Panyan Seer, the threat that is the Kachain Shamal. She slowly studied their faces, then said, a matron lives, flesh and blood. Should she find a male of her kind, a flesh and blood male, the tyranny of the Jagut will be as nothing to that of the Kachain Shamal. This, then, will be our sacrifice.
Escalation alert.
There you go.
Only the wind filled the silence following her words. Then Brood turned to Calor. He asked, and you find in this woman an abomination? Calor rasped. She lies. This entire war is meaningless. Nothing more than a feint. Dujek repeated, a feint? In disbelief. He asked, by whom? Calor snapped his mouth shut, made no reply. Herodis cleared her throat, then said, there may be some truth in that. Not that the woman Silver Fox is lying. I believe she speaks true, as far as she is willing to tell us. No, I meant the faint. Consider the infection of the Warrens. Granted, its focus seems to emanate from the Panyan Daman, and granted, as well, that the poison's taint is that of the Warren of Chaos. Granted all of that, one must then ask, why would a Kachain Shamal matron, who is the repository of a vast wellspring of sorcery, seek to destroy the very conduits of her power? If she was present when Morn was destroyed, when the rent was created, why would she then try to harness chaos again? Ambitious, perhaps, but a fool? That is hard to countenance. Even as the import of her words sank into Whiskey Jack, there came to him another realization. He thought, there is another enemy indeed, and from the looks on most of the faces around me, barring Dujek and, no doubt, my own, the revelation is not as surprising as it should be. True, we'd caught a hint, but we'd failed to make the connection. Brood, Korlat, Kalor, gods, even Krupp and Artanthos. Remind me to avoid every damn one of them the next time I join a game of bones. Back to the point of who knows the crippled god is behind this, it sounds like they may know or may have suspicions based off that last sentence there, and it's hard to know which.
It is, I agree. There's suspicions for sure, but I guess because there's no clear line of control can be seen of an assisting force that we suspect, but we can't say for sure. Not going to be surprised when it's revealed that it is in fact true.
Yeah. Quick Ben knows that the crippled god is infecting Burn. I don't know that he knows that the crippled god is also helping or corrupting the Panyan Seer in the Panyan Daman.
Well,
separately, Talk has seen the corruption in person. So
yes.
They both know of the crippled god's existence. Or I don't know if Talk knows of the crippled god, but he knows that he's being corrupted by something.
Yes.
So those are the two that know, and then these people are starting to make the connections now, it seems.
Yeah, especially if you have something that we suspect that we've talked about. There's a Jagoot, a fear of this Jagoot that may be driving this Panyan Daman, but all of a sudden there's this Kachain Shamal at the same time. It's like, this doesn't sound right. They shouldn't be, these should not be working together.
These two don't generally take kindly, right?
Yeah, they don't take kindly. The KC in particular, the Kachain Shamal, they don't take kindly, period. I don't think they know how to take kindly. They're reptiles. I don't think they just by nature, they just don't have kindness.
Right. Whiskey Jack jerked his gaze back to Silver Fox, was met with that sleepy, knowing regard. He thought, no, that won't work again. Then growled, Silver Fox, you spin a tale to sting sympathy from our hearts. Yet it seems that your effort was misdirected, and so you end up undermining all you sought to achieve. If there is a deeper threat, a third hand, deftly manipulating both us and the Panyan Seer, will you and your Talanai mass then focus your attention on that hand? Silver Fox said, no. Whiskey Jack asked, why? He was surprised as her steady gaze wavered, then fell away. Her voice came out in a raw whisper. Because, Whiskey Jack, you ask too much of us. I know this is a really important, serious moment, but I have to take a second here because there is a quote that comes to mind every time I hear someone say, you ask too much of me. And the response is, no, you do not ask enough of yourself. I don't know where I heard that. I tried to find it, couldn't find it, but it's stuck in my mind.
I don't think it had to do with trying to send a race to their death to try and stop another race from taking out another race.
They're all in it. And if it's as bad as everyone is saying, no one can run from it. It's like being trapped in Kapustan. You're going to have to fight. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, agreed.
If anyone knows where that quote came from, do me a favor and email me. contact@horsefrogproductions.com, because I swear I didn't come up with that myself. I heard it somewhere.
That sounds like a motivational speech for sure. No, you don't ask yourself enough. You know what I'm saying? I need 50 more reps, sir. Karashi, drop it, give me 50. No, you don't ask enough of yourself. Give me 50.
Yep. No one spoke. Dread swept through Whiskey Jack. He swung about, locked gazes with Dujek, saw in the old man's face a mirror to his own growing horror. He thought, gods below, we are heading to our deaths. An unseen enemy, but one we've known about for a long time. One we knew was coming, sooner or later. One that, by the abyss, makes the Talan Imass recoil. Krupp cried, such palpable distraughtness. Distraughtness? Is there such a word? If not, then among Krupp's countless talents, we must add linguistic invention. My friends, attend, hark, listen. Take heart, one and all, in the knowledge that Krupp has placed himself, feet square and ample girth firm, in the path of said, yet unmentioned, formidable enemy of all existence. Sleep calm at night in this knowledge. Slumber as babes in your mother's arms, as each of you once did, even Calor, though the image shocks and dismays. Brood roared, "Damn it! What in Hood's name are you talking about, little man? You claim to stand in the path of the crippled god? By the abyss, you are mad!" He continued speaking as he swung down from his horse. "If you do not give instant proof of your efficacy," he strode towards Krupp, one hand reaching for the wrapped handle of his hammer. He said, "I will not predict the extremity of my temper." Silver Fox murmured, "I wouldn't do that, Brood." Brood twisted to face her, teeth bared. He said, "You now extend your protection to this arrogant, fat toad?" Her eyes widened, and she looked to Krupp. She asked, "Krupp, do you make such a request?" Krupp said, "Absurd! No offense, dear, in that expostulation, Krupp sweetly assures you." Whiskey Jack stared, disbelieving, as the round little man, in his food and drink-stained clothes, drew himself up as straight as he was able and fixed small, glittering eyes on Brood. He said, "Threaten Krupp of Darujistan, will you? Demand an explanation, do you? Fondling that hammer, are you? Bearing those Brood bellowed, "Silence!" struggling to control his anger. Whiskey Jack thought, "Gods below, what is Krupp up to?" Krupp continued, "Krupp defies all threats. Krupp sneers at whatever demonstration bristling warlord would attempt." The hammer was suddenly in Brood's hands, a smudged blur as it swung through the air, a downward arc, to strike the earth almost at Krupp's feet. The detonation threw horses down, sent Whiskey Jack and the others flying. A thunderous concussion cracked the air. The ground seemed to leap up to meet Whiskey Jack. The impact, like a fist when he struck, rolled, then tumbled his way down the boulder-strewn slope. Above him, horses were screaming. A wind, hot shrieking, shot dust and earth skyward. The scree of boulders was moving beneath Whiskey Jack, flowing, sliding down into the valley at an ever-quickening pace with a rumbling, growing roar. Rocks clanged against his armor, wrapped into the helm on his head, leaving him stunned. He caught a flashing glimpse through a jagged tear in the dust cloud of the line of hills on the other side of the valley. Impossibly, they were rising, fast. The bedrock splitting the grassy hide, loosing gouts of dust, rock shards, and smoke. Then the swarming dust swallowed the world around him. Boulders bounced over him, tumbling. Others struck him solid, painful blows that left him gasping, coughing, choking as he rolled. Even now, the ground continued to heave beneath the sliding scree. Distant detonations shook the air, trembled through Whiskey Jack's battered bones. He came to a rest, half buried in gravel and rocks. Blinking, eyes burning, he saw before him the Reeve scouts, dodging, leaping from the path of bounding boulders as if in some bizarre, deadly game. Beyond, black, steaming bedrock towered, the spine of a new mountain range, still growing, still rising, lifting and tilting the floor of the valley where the Malazan now lay. The sky behind it churned iron gray with steam and smoke. Wow, so the legends are true. Brood can awaken burn by striking the ground with the hammer. What an amazing scene.
And this is such a core memory, not just of this book. This is one of the core memories of the whole series for me.
Yes. Absolutely. Agreed. Krupp really got under his skin right there. I mean, he was pushing it hard.
What's the reason? There's got to be a reason behind it.
I don't know. I thought about it for a bit.
I know, because Krupp doesn't just do things. I mean, he does seem to, he appears to just do things, but I take nothing that he does as chance or circumstance. Everything that Krupp does to me is way more coldly calculating than we think.
The paragraph that was preceding Brood's explosion, Krupp was saying that they shouldn't worry. He has decided to step in and fight against the crippled god.
Yeah. I got your back. Sleep good.
Maybe that was the point of this, was to piss Brood off so much, to have Brood actually use his weapon, and to demonstrate through what we're about to see that he is more than he seems, and that they shouldn't take him saying that he's standing against the crippled god lightly.
Yeah, maybe so. That's could be. It's just a demonstration to say, like, hey, I'll stand here from a guy who just rose some mountains. I'm just gonna stand here.
Right. Whiskey Jack thought, "Hood take me, poor Krupp." Groaning, Whiskey Jack twisted round as far as he could. He was covered in scrapes, could feel the tender birth of huge bruises beneath his dented, torn armor, but his bones were amazingly intact. He strained his watering eyes to the hilltop behind him.
Notice he didn't say anything about his leg.
Yeah, the one time it's not mentioned. He's probably in so much pain everywhere else he doesn't notice it anymore.
That's probably, that's probably what it is. How far down the hill would they have rolled? I mean, because creating mountains doesn't just happen. I mean, it's like you've got valleys created, so y'all would they be rolling down this hill?
Remember, it was pretty steep. They had to carefully go down it on their horses around
Yeah.
boulders and other rocks. And
Yeah.
if you get knocked down that, and it's like a landslide of that stuff, you will get hurt pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wild, man.
The scree was gone, leaving a gaping, raw cliff face. Most of the mesa's summit was simply no longer there, obliterated, leaving a small, flat-topped island, where Whiskey Jack now saw figures moving, rising, horses scrambling upright. Faintly came the brazen complaint of a mule. To the north, cutting a path down along the side of a distant valley, then through distant hills, a narrow, steaming crack was visible, a fissure in the earth that seemed depthless. Whiskey Jack painfully pulled himself clear of the rubble, slowly straightened. He saw Brute hammer hanging down from his hands. Motionless standing before the warlord, on an island of his own, was Krupp, brushing dust from his clothes. The crack that had been born from where the hammer had struck the earth parted neatly around the short, fat Daru, joining again just behind him. And that's pretty amazing. Who is Krupp, and what does he represent? That's what I want to know.
I know it. Well, obviously, he's not wrong when he says, you sleep good at night, folks. Krupp's here. I've got y'all covered.
Whiskey Jack struggled to hold back a laugh, knowing how desperate, how jarring it would sound. He thought, so, we have seen Brood's fury, and Krupp, that preposterous little man, has stood it down. Well, if proof was ever needed that the Daru was not as he appeared to be. He then frowned and thought, a demonstration indeed. Directed towards whom, I wonder? A cry of dismay cut through his thoughts. Corlat. She faced north, her posture somehow contracted, drawn in on itself. The fissure, Whiskey Jack now saw, all amusement gone, was filling with blood. He thought fouled blood, rotten blood. Beru Fend, the sleeping goddess. Burned sleeps, the sleep of the dying, the poisoned. And this, he realized, was the day's final, most terrible revelation. He thought diseased, the hand of the crippled god. All right, we're going to stop here and finish out the chapter next week. This was an incredibly consequential section of the chapter. A huge number of things felt like they progressed story-wise right here.
Yeah, a lot of stuff clicked into place.
Oh, yeah. For standout moments, the Reeve scouts discussing their findings together and the way the scout leader conveyed the story to Whiskey Jack. I appreciated that.
I really enjoyed that. And as odd as it seemed, like I said, in a way, I could see that being a very effective way of bouncing ideas off of each other if you know how to do it and are taught to do it that way. And these guys have grown up together doing this kind of stuff. I'm assuming that this is how they are. And but it's kind of like a group mind, kind of get the group brain thinking a little bit.
Reminds me a little bit of how Kalam and Quick Ben talk, where they finish each other's sentences.
Very much.
Krupp's mule racing Corlat and Silver Fox's horses down the slope. That was hilarious.
That is so funny, man. All that stuff with it. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the mule in this one because there's mule stuff in this one. And there's horses in Deadass Gates. There's mules in Memories of Ice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Silver Fox summoning the Talan A.
Yes.
That was an epic moment. And then them eerily standing there all staring at her.
Man, that'd be awesome looking, dude. And it'd be kind of scary because they're all undead too, so that'd be kind of unsettling and cool at the same time.
Kalor's info drop on the Kachane Chamal and what led to their destruction.
Yeah, wow. Just wow. Thank you, Kalor. We appreciate you being there for that, filling us up on some info there.
Yeah. And his condescending tone the whole time was amazing.
Yes. Oh, fantastic, dude. Fantastic.
The introduction of the short tales.
And I love any info that we get on any of these. I'm going to call them elders just because I don't know what else to call them, but
yeah.
I hang on every word of this stuff, especially about I don't know why they could change them all. So fascinate me. They're one of the ones that just fascinate me.
Because you love Alien. And
I love Alien.
Alien.
That's what it is. It's always Alien. It's always Alien. You're right. It's exactly what it is. It's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite series.
Krupp taunting Brood until he swung his hammer. And Krupp withstanding / avoiding the blast.
Yeah. Dude, absolute core. Like I said, this is probably one of the most core memories from this series. I never forget this. There's things I forget, and there's core memories that are refound on our rereads. But this one, this just never goes away. That's when this never goes. Krupp, making that old boy mad enough to make him pull his weapon and smash it. Just, dude, wow. Great stuff.
And then finally, the fissure welling up with Burns' blood.
Yeah. Quite horrific. Quite a horrific scene, that one, because everyone's kind of standing around. You got a little moment of levity for just a moment, and you're like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
This is really bad. We thought we knew what we were getting into. Apparently, this is a lot meaner and a lot worse than we think it is. He's poisoning the earth.
Right. And that affects everybody.
Yes, it does.
All right. Great job tonight, Billy.
Hey, really good episode, man. Really enjoyed this one.
You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
No, just so much happening here. Just think about this is just part one of this chapter. We got the return of the Talana A and the incident with Brood and Krupp. I mean, that's just the first part of the chapter. It's a great chapter. I'm looking forward to next week.
Oh, yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.